Too often, we think science communication starts and ends with words. A textbook, a paper, maybe a diagram if we're lucky. Last episode, we looked at science communication through website design. Today, we're going further into that same idea, but with art. A project can have groundbreaking research behind it and still lose people before they ever get to the science, just because nothing about it feels approachable. Art is what closes that gap. It's the difference between a project that reads as a checklist of deliverables and one that feels like it has an identity, something people remember, want to explore, and can actually connect with emotionally, not just intellectually. And for a team, it does something else too. It's often the thing that ties the whole project together, giving every piece, the wiki, the presentation, the outreach materials, a shared visual language instead of a bunch of disconnected parts. Art doesn't just mean paintings hanging in a gallery. So let's dig into it. How art turns a science project into something people actually remember. Let's start with the thing everyone sees first, the logo. Here's Wendy Wu to tell us about that.
So I think of logos not only as decoration, but as a way to summarize the team's project's identity in one simple visual. Now, I will be talking about my process for this year's project, Trace. It starts with understanding what the project is about, and the story behind the project, and the point of what we are trying to do. Also, the color palette and the theme was really important aspect, because the logo helps set up the whole website and the ecosystem of the project, which in this case is focused on healing, which ties to a more softer color palette. Next, brainstorming was done to think of how to shape the words and make symbols that connect to biology, the problem, and the audience in a unique way. The program I used was Procreate, where I would map out different sketches and then manipulate the letters in different ways to fit the theme. I would also add simple small doodles on the side to make it fit the theme better as well. So the logos are voted on by the whole project team, but as a sub-team, we change a lot during our own sub-team meetings to make it look better. For the first set of logos for Trace, as a whole sub-team, we decided it looked a bit too simple with all our designs, so all of us decided to change it. Like, we talked about how we should not only focus on simplicity, but also making it look more bold and memorable. That is this year's logo. It represents the word trace, as well as what the project meant as a whole. It's not only simple, but it had different parts that matched this year's project, which is the whole goal of what a logo is supposed to do. We also wanted to make the logo recognizable and representative of what we are trying to show. It's impossible to make a logo look perfect and that fits all the criterias, but it should be well-rounded enough to represent the project in a unique way. Rather than making it bold and bright, it should be cohesive with everything else to make it overall aesthetically pleasing. Now finally, the logo should be something simple, scalable. It should still look clear when it's small, like on a website header, but also feel polished enough for a presentation or a poster. The color palette is another important part of making a logo, since it should be similar with the mascot and the website as a whole.
As we've said, website design has a lot of components, art being one of them. If you go through an iGEM website, or any website for that matter, you'll see motifs. Motifs are a recurring visual element, such as a shape, icon, color scheme, or pattern that's repeated throughout a site. Here's Nicole Zhu to talk about that.
I think one of the biggest things we learned while designing the website was just how important consistency is. It kind of sounds obvious, but having a consistent theme really helps viewers and users understand what they're looking at. So if every page has like different style, different color, and different fonts, it can feel really disconnected and honestly kind of confusing. But when everything is tied together visually, it's a lot easier to navigate and it just feels a lot more polished. For us, that consistently started really early on during our wireframing process. Even though wireframes are usually mostly about layouts and structures, we were kind of thinking about what kind of experiences we wanted the people to have when they were looking through our website and scrolling through the pages. We weren't just placing boxes, we were thinking about how do we want someone to feel as they're scrolling through the website. For last year's project, we had a space theme, which was really fun to work with because it gave us a very clear artistic direction. During brainstorming, we had already settled on the general concept and the logo, so we had this really strong foundation to work with. And we chose a color palette with dark purples and reds that fit really well with our project about planetary remediation on Martian soil. And so we really based off of the colors that we chose, and those colors ended up being the palette for everything else on our website. One thing I really liked was the idea of making it feel like the viewer was actually arriving on Mars. So on our homepage, the website starts with this fun little zoom in animation that says "Welcome to Mars," and from there we want it to feel almost like telling a story. So as you scroll, you're introduced to different problems on Mars that we're trying to solve, and eventually the solution. So thinking about the website as kind of like a journey rather than just pages and information with interactive elements made it a lot easier to design. And so once we had the theme, it was a lot easier to design all the individual components because everything just kind of related back to the theme that we were going for. And so we added a lot of animations and we made things that fit the environment. So as you scroll down the homepage, you can see there's like toxic chemical bottles that animate into views. As you scroll down, you can also see that the Mars planet spins around, and that was another interactive element that we incorporated. And I just felt like those interactions made the website feel more alive, and it was really important part of the wireframing design process. But my favorite feature was the rocket scroll bar on the side of the page. It's a really small detail, but I think it fits the theme really perfectly, and it makes scrolling through the page feel really fun. I think the biggest takeaway when designing a website, whether that be logo, mascots, or like icons, or even animations, I think they should all have a very important consistency. Although they can be very different, I feel like they should all belong in the same theme and same world. I think the logo also played a huge role because it kind of set the visual language for everything. Since we already established the Prosper logo during the brainstorming process, it made it a lot easier to base everything off of that. And I really like the Prosper logo because it kind of has this futuristic space inspired look with the Mars theme, and the kind of like the different fonts really tied in, and the red color also really tied in with the Martian theme, and that just made it a lot easier for us to design the rest of the website.
Finally, let's talk about everyone's favorite, the mascots. Here's Audrey Fu to talk about that.
The way mascot design really works is sort of all the wiki members are tasked with designing a mascot that we think is relevant with the theme. And so a lot of my experience will be going off of the Prosper project from last year. And so when we came into designing mascots, we already had sort of like a color theme we wanted, as well as like the general theme that it was like space related. So a lot of our mascots were sort of based off of that idea. And one of the main things that I thought about was a planet because it provided a lot of space where I could draw a face, as well as like hands or arms that would make the mascot seem more natural, as well as like more personable and identifiable. And so along the process, I thought about like, oh, since we're going to be in space, I might as well include a planet. And then as I was designing that, I also thought of the idea of sort of looking into a moon as well, since all space elements, and I came up with names for my mascots as Muno and Bars, very inspired by Bruno Mars, if you couldn't tell. And so once we have all of the mascots designed, we come together as a team, and while the mascot is voted mostly by the rest of the project team as well, we also go through slight iterations in the background to see if we can incorporate more ideas. So for example, Nicole's mascot was chosen by the overall project team, but we implemented the idea that there could be two mascots, so that's why we had a moon and sort of like a planet at the end, which is like how we sort of iterate. And in the background, we also sort of like tweak the mascots to have different emotions or poses or forms, so that there's a wider variety of things that we can use to sort of like brand for iGEM. In general, when we're designing the mascots or picking like the main theme, we try to think of things that people can easily identify with our project, but also as an object itself. So I think when we chose to do like moons and planets, people could really easily tell that it was a space project. The mascots usually also follow the color palette of the project itself. So if you look at last year, our theme was mostly red and sort of like white, as well as like some tinges of brown. And so that's why a lot of the mascots had a lot of white color or like red color to sort of follow the main theme that we were using.
So from the logo to the motifs to the mascot everyone ends up loving, none of these are just decoration. They're the through line that makes a project feel cohesive. A great logo tells you what a project is about before you've read a single word of the abstract. Consistent motifs make a website feel intentional instead of thrown together, and a mascot gives people something to actually connect with, something that makes them want to stick around and learn more. That's really what science art is for. Not making things look pretty for its own sake, but making the science land. If people remember your mascot, there's a good chance they'll remember what your project was trying to do, and that's the whole point of communicating science in the first place. That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time to talk about side projects. Until then, stay smart, and I'll see you geniuses soon.